Hey, alright. Let's open that up. Okay, so instead of Saul Alinsky, I said to myself, I gotta use my time, and I gotta hit a current event when I gotta hit it, because I don't want to let too many days go by since this event. The It's been a long, long time. Uh, I don't remember the last time this president, the only president that's ever done round tables, um, has done a round table. And, to do this one on Antifa. And, this is a big effing deal when it comes to the discussion of the police state, right? Because here we are with regardless of anybody's narrative, this is what's happening, right? And so, if you have an argument against Antifa and domestic terrorism, you are going to have to respond to the grievances within this, because this roundtable is setting setting the precedent for what will be future policy regarding the limits of organized protest. Because if you're going to continue to call yourself honestly, the way I see it is, you're just being dishonest anyway. If you're doing what you're doing as Antifa and you continue to call it protesting, you're lying, because you've added to the protest harm. You've crossed that threshold, and it's not many of you, but but all of you endorse the few that do. This is why you cheered Luigi Mangione. It's why you cheered Charlie Kirk and everything else. And so, many people that identify as Antifa, they come out of they come out of the liberal urban world that I know and love. And I don't see how you think you're helping making the poor better by any of this. How you are helping anybody who you perceive to be exploited better by what you are doing. I don't know why you have failed in the ability to articulate a compromisable side, giving the other side a slight benefit of the doubt. Yes, sure, to be vehemently against other things that they are doing. You know what I mean? So, these are the things that challenge anybody who's got an idea in their head of what the meaning of public safety, quote unquote, is. So we're gonna get into this. I have to find out what I'm doing here. Hold on a minute. Okay, properties. There we go. There we go. Yes. All right. Oops. We're gonna go right here. That'll roughly do it. We're gonna put this bad boy at 1.5 speed, and because things that I appreciate were addressed in this forum. Hold on. I gotta move this thing down a couple of hairs. 1 sec. There we go. And there. Perfect. Now it's behind. Right, and so I'm going to try and parse the hairs here between my universe thinking of what do you do as an anarchist and what do you do when you know that the government's not going to not exist right now and that public safety measures need to exist for people who refuse to take care of themselves. Let's listen. Let's listen into this whole thing.
Seems to be our schedule. It should be clear to all Americans that we have a very serious left-wing terror threat in our country. Radicals associated with the domestic terror group Antifa that you've heard a lot about lately, and I've heard a lot about them for 10 years. And other far-left extremists have been carrying out a campaign of violence against ICE agents and other officials charged with enforcing federal law. In Chicago, anarchists have surveilled at least 4 local ICE facilities and posted diagrams of the buildings online, meaning nothing but bad, accompanied by photos of specific ICE agents that they're targeting, one in particular who's a top person and a great patriot. In July, approximately a dozen Antifa-aligned militants stormed the ICE facility in Texas and then lured officers out of the building before firing dozens of rounds at police. They were crazy, frankly, shooting one Texas officer in the neck. And in Portland, Oregon, Antifa thugs have repeatedly attacked our officers and laid siege to federal property in an attempt to violently stop the execution of federal law. Everything we're doing is very lawful. What they're doing is not lawful. And what the governor and the mayor of, as an example, you could say of Portland and you could say certainly of Chicago, is not lawful what they're doing. They have to be very careful. In addition, 2 weeks ago, radical left terrorists in Dallas conducted a sniper attack on a local ICE facility, killing 2 people and leaving behind a note that read, "Hopefully this will give ICE agents some real terror." That's bad. This attack came the very same month that Charlie Kirk was assassinated by a far-left extremist who inscribed the words, "Hey fascist, catch," meaning catch the bullet, onto the bullet shelf itself. The epidemic of left-wing violence and Antifa-inspired terror has been escalating for nearly a decade. At universities, Antifa has organized riotous mobs to attack campus speakers. I see it all the time. And these are agitators, anarchists, and they're paid. And you'll find that out. You'll be finding it out very soon. You should see what we have on these people. These are bad people. These are people that want to destroy our country. We're not going to let it happen. They've used armed gangs to assault local police in cities nationwide, and they've attacked journalists reporting on their crimes. So the journalists that report on their crimes, don't worry, you're very safe. I hope that's not going to turn you around, but they have been very threatening to people, but we're going to be very threatening to them, far more threatening to them than they ever were with us, and that includes the people that fund them. Probably some of the people I know, some of the people I dine with, but if they do, they're in deep trouble. So we're going to be looking very strongly at the people that are funding these operations. When you see the sign...
So right there, you know, he's posturing, allegedly, that he will arrest his colleagues. He will arrest people that at the very least he's always been friendly with. Right? He's saying, like, you know, your relationship with me is not going to protect you if you've been, you know, putting towards these guys, right? It is my sincerest hope that that this Justice Department doesn't go just ape shit on everybody. Dude, there's a lot of fucking innocent people that they're just sympathizers. There's a lot of fucking sympathizers. Probably a lot of people that aren't, like, it's not that hard to get a semi-anti-fascist uniform versus a more proper fascist uniform, right? I use the picture of these people saying they are an official Philly chapter, right? By the rules of how Antifa works, it's like, you know, like, as far as they're concerned, there's, you know, do they ever ask themselves where the money comes from for fabrication of shields and things like that? You know, like I've never seen a video of an Antifa guy fabricating a shield. I mean, like, I can watch videos all day of gun enthusiasts showing you how to scope your rifle and and everything else, right? Because you're typically living in a way that nobody has a problem with what you're doing. Okay, so if he just handles the upwind stuff, the stuff downwind will disappear almost immediately. A lot of people are just doing this because they feel protected to do it, as this is a salable answer. Because I'm looking at all these people that do, like, these are young guys. Like, these guys got a lot to live for. There's a lot of people here that got a lot to live for doing this dangerous shit because they're just true believers that love somebody enough to say, I'd rather be evil against those who say that they are good, because they are hurting people I love as I believe they are being hurt, right? There's a lot to get involved with. Like, does any of this investigation, get into mind control? Do we ignore mind control? I don't think MK Ultra or anything like that was talked about. They did talk about the anti-fascists of 100 years ago. So you will hear the line of history to the organization transcendent of what the cool kids today think that they're doing.
And they're all made out of a beautiful...
Well, yeah, he does sound like a retarded robot because that's his audience. This is why, like all these politicians, they talk like idiots because there's a certain point where their intelligence is so threatening that they have to completely hide their intelligence. So, that's part and parcel of what this is. Things happen. They're not perfect. I'm not saying they're evil geniuses, but when they're sitting there and they're trying 50 ways to Sunday in an intelligent manner to explain why they want to do what they're doing, and everybody just it's over their head, and all they know is what they know in their fucking head, and they just keep yelling at you because it just sounded like you're trying to mansplain or something, you end up talking like a deranged grandfather. This is what happened. Barack Obama, he had an eloquent cadence to very, very small words. And look at how stupid he sounds when he talks now, for reals. As opposed to the merely scripted eloquence of speech. Just eloquence of speech. You could be the dumbest fuck on the planet, but you have perfect diction. So, not saying Trump's some sort of guy doing this for the greater good because he's trying to troll the evil media. I'm just saying this is just what the optics of the job have to be. So yes, Trump definitely sounds like a retarded robot. And that's because Trump understands that we get the nation that we deserve. And talking to the media is talking to artificial intelligence because they're living off of an algorithm.
Beautiful paper, beautiful, nice, stiff, very expensive paper with beautiful wood handles, all the same color. They come from very expensive printing machines. These are not people that write out their signs in a basement that believe in something. These are paid anarchists. At least 3 of these courageous journalists have personally been victims of Antifa attacks. Andy Ngo has been repeatedly beaten by Antifa thugs for his work. Andy is a very serious person, too, I have to tell you. I've been watching him for a long time. Is Andy here? That's what I thought. Hello, Andy. I thought that was you. You're looking better than you do out on those streets, huh? You look much better. It's nice to have you. You feel a little safer here, I think, maybe. Well, not that safe, because you have them. You have to worry about that. But thank you very much. Andy Ngo has been repeatedly beaten by Antifa, and including one assault that left him with a brain hemorrhage. Only days ago, Nick Sortor was assaulted in Portland by a flag burning mob, and we've made it 1-year penalty for inciting riots. We took the freedom of speech away because that's been through the courts, and the court said you have freedom of speech. But what has happened is when they burn a flag, it agitates and irritates crowds. I've never seen anything like it on both sides, and you end up with riots. So we're going on that basis. We're looking at it from not from the freedom of speech, which I always felt strongly about, but never passed the courts. This is what they do: is they incite. When you burn an American flag, you incite tremendous violence. We have many examples of it, many examples of it, and it's actually down on tape. And you see things happen.
I mean, the simpler answer is that when you burn an American flag, you invent an incendiary object. You're creating an incendiary object. You're burning a flag. Something, its purpose is not to burn, but it is good for burning for a long enough time to do something with it, like stuff it into a Molotov cocktail.
That just don't happen unless it's a flag that's burning. Very recently, Katie Davis Court was hit in the face with a flagpole in Portland.
Oh, yeah, believe me, every way to Sunday. Just like the name of the pagan has to be restored, the name of anarchy has to be restored, right? And we all know that he's talking about violent socialists who are major statists that ruin the anarchist name. If the left didn't keep trying to build a leftist authoritarianism that sounds like kumbayaism, right? And so the people he's talking to, especially the Democrats that hold office because they matter, that's what's going on, right? This is all in context to legalese. We all know that this is the legalese issue, and in order to change the legalese and influence it by us in our amendment to reality, bringing things back into focus, we have to have a higher level of Galder. Because if you're not capable of directly interfacing with an extreme leftist or an extreme rightist, you do not have the power to change the world. You have to be able to hold your posture and defend and even press on your position. And to always frame it in let the truth strike down my words. Because we're not championing our narcissistic idea of an experiment in government that we want. We're just making you realize how you live that dismisses its authority intentionally. And absolutely. That's what we're doing, right? Because, Mark is not organizing anything. In fact, he's anti-organizing stuff. So, if we're not organizing, then we're never forming militias. We're never arming up. We're never planning to go and do a thing against anybody. Which is why it's completely irrelevant to be worried as anarchists, because our lives change the definition of that word. When somebody asks you why you do certain things a certain way, and that thing you're doing doesn't scare them at all, and you can just smile because you found one of your anarchist moments that shines well, own it. Oh, it's because I'm a fucking anarchist. And just like that, and no one's going to fucking argue with you because they already established that they liked what you're doing. And that's how that works. And you do that working side by side with men and women in the system. Because you got to do what you got to do in the system at the level that you have to interface with the system. If you're so free as to all you got to do is go to the store, it's got something to do with how you fucking do what you do in the store. Anyway.
By an Antifa radical, leaving her with a very blackened eye. So, Katie, thank you very much. And I'd like to also say that I watched Nick. Where's Nick? Is Nick here? Nick? Hi, Nick. That was a rough time you went through. I hope you got my little note. I wrote you a note.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. It helped a lot. It was a difficult situation. It was very stressful.
Yeah.
And your note helped a lot. I truly appreciate it.
I thought it was terrible, actually. I thought it was terrible. So we'll talk about it a little bit. Under the last administration, the Department of Justice targeted faithful Catholics, Christians, and patriotic parents as domestic extremists. They said, oh, they're extreme because they believe in God. They're extreme because they go to a Catholic church, or evangelicals, where everybody was under the gun. Unless you were a really bad, sick person, then they left you alone. Under the Trump administration, we're going after Antifa criminals, and all who fund and support their campaigns are in serious trouble. And we have a lot of records already, a lot of surprises, a lot of bad surprises. It's people that you would never think. I want to thank Attorney General Pam Bondi, who, by the way, yesterday was incredible in Congress. It was amazing, and she just did it from the heart. And the brain, because she's very smart, in all fairness. But she did it from the heart, and she did it an incredible. Everybody was talking about it. She exposed some of these fake senators, these terrible senators, people like Blumenthal that had a phony war record. For 20 years, he talked about what a hero he was, and it turned out he never went to Vietnam. For 20 years, he talked about being a hero in Vietnam. Then it was exposed when he said what platoon he was with, and it was exposed that somebody was watching from that particular platoon. They said he was never with us. And then he went out and he cried and he was ready to drop out of the election. And disgraceful. And then he looks at people like Pam and he starts criticizing her, and she's a patriot. And they ought to do something with that. You know, we have a young congressman that's right now in jail for lying about where he went to college and other things. It was, you know, frankly not good. It was pretty bad, but it was not.
So, like, here's, like, one of the things, like, here's a little tell, by the way, for you, right? Look at what Trump just did. You know, they play the game, and each fails the other. You know, he puts up this chick who is like a Miss America pageant kind of posturing. That's the optics. She has the optics of she's posturing being a person who should be in that role, and some of that optics is real because of her odd record. Now, this is a pantomime mockery of the same kind of hiring bullshit from prior administrations, right? So Trump gets away with it because he's intentionally playing with the cognitive dissonance, right? He's, you know, he has the, well, look, and then he can talk shit, and it gives him permission to talk shit about the other guy. So that's what he just did, right? He talked shit because it's a shallow question in the first place. The answer to that question, the answer, you know, like the circumstances of the situation presented, right? The terms in which the opposition had stepped in to cause conflict wasn't constructive and helpful, right? So Trump knows that there was such dishonesty coming in from the other side, and it's just, you know, and he knows that a whole bunch of other people can see it, and anybody who can't see it, they're just gonna call him racist or something, right? You know, and this is all that this is all that it is. What would you do? What would you do if your life choices brought you to this place, right? Even if you were a fucking, quote, good person, what would you do with the fact that this is the way the goddamn machine works, right? This makes a lot of sense to me, is that somebody in the upper structure said, we're going to have to risk letting Donald Trump run the show for us. Somebody in the Illuminati said, fuck, but dude, we got to let Trump win? You got to be fucking kidding me. We're letting House of Orange in and their fucking ideas? Get the fuck out of here. They can't rule people. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. We kicked them out. Like, whatever the fuck their little, like, soap opera that they're having up there that half the women in the fucking country are now fantasizing about.
Nothing compared to Blumenthal. I mean, what Blumenthal did, he was for 20 years a hero, a great war hero. And then he sits back and, you know, sanctimonious kind of a guy, looks at, how dare you do this to the American public, you know? What a fake.
By the way, I lean so hard into my Libra, like, my Aries fucking determination is just goes into I just lean into the Libra side. I've been leaning into Libra real fucking hard, right? Meaning I just can't with anybody, not even what I already agree with, right? I consider myself an anarchist, but when I'm leaning into Libra, I'm arguing with anarchists because I am absolutely nothing because I am all things and no things at the same time. Libra's a very liberating. Liber. See how that works? Very liberating sign if you know what you're doing.
But I thought Pam was incredible yesterday, as well as Secretary Kristi Noem, who's really out there courageously, and I appreciate it, Kristi. Amazing what you're doing. FBI Director Kash Patel, who's really coming up with some great information, Kash. It's great. Keep it coming because there's plenty of it. Deputy Attorney General, one of the best lawyers you'll ever find. Todd Blanche, who I know personally is a good lawyer because I'm here. Thank you very much, Todd. Good job there. Let me ask Attorney General Bondi to say a few words, and then we'll follow it up with Secretary Noem and Director Patel. And we're going to have some of the people around the table, very courageous people, and they're going to be talking, journalists, almost all, and they're going to be talking, and we'll take some questions from the press at the end. Okay, Pam, please.
Thank you, President Trump. And as you made clear, Antifa is a domestic left-wing terrorist organization. We've seen them on video for years because they wanted to be seen and they got away with it. They beat journalists, they attack courthouses, they attack police stations, they dox and assault our law enforcement officers. The Biden administration let them commit these crimes with total impunity for years. So did Democrat leaders like Pritzker and Mayor Brandon Johnson. Last week, independent journalist Nick Sorter was arrested just for protecting himself against Antifa. I saw it online and I called Nick. I couldn't believe what happened. He did all this just trying to save our American flag from being burned. He was pushed down and assaulted, yet the local police arrested Nick, not the Antifa thugs who did this to him. Antifa feels empowered to operate in the open because weak Democrats have turned a blind eye to their actions.
Okay, so the guy ran if that's the heart and soul of the circumstances the guy was in, now if the context is that that flag was being burned to be used as an incendiary device instead of just a political statement, then he had no business. It was not his flag. Likely that flag was surrounded by people that wanted to watch it burn, likely on a concrete surface, because these things usually happen on like streets, sidewalks, parking lots, or something innocuous like grass, which will burn, but that's not going to fucking cause a real fire, right? You're running in on them. That makes you the instigator, right? Because you can't tell the future. You don't know what those kids were interested in doing next, right? That's what you take away from that with that very short synopsis from Pam, right? It's very childish playground fight, like he started it shit, right? And that's kind of what is the most immature aspect of why we have to have this roundtable, is because somebody's always blameless. Someone's always blameless, and nobody cares about the investigation. Everybody's just going with their popularity contest winner, such as Miss America over here.
Their hatred for President Trump and for law and order agendas fuels their violence. We've seen more than 1,000% increase in attacks against our ICE agents since January 20th.
And by the way, as fucking retarded as that sounds, because they hate President Trump and this and that, we have 10 years precedent of that being very loud and clear, and those people have been not just the enemy of Trump, they've been the enemy of moderate Americans all over the goddamn fucking place. It's been a bit of a menacing. We have this idea of a society. We live in a society. That's why people got fired for mocking Charlie Kirk when he died. because there's a sense of a fucking society, and it's a little bit repugnant to the soul, don't you think? You know? Like, so when like a guy on the morality level of Thomas Sheridan and a guy on the morality level of a born-again Christian can see eye to eye in how awful that fucking was. Right? I mean, even fucking Gavin Newsom thought that was in bad taste, and he wants to be president.
Secretary Noem is out there fighting for you firsthand to keep our federal officers safe, to keep our federal buildings safe, and we're not going to have it anymore, these thugs. We saw what's happening in Portland and Chicago, and you saw what happened in Dallas. No longer. This is not activism, it's anarchy. We can't and we will not let masked terrorists burn our buildings, attack our law enforcement, and intimidate our communities. Under your leadership, President Trump, we're deploying the full might of the federal law enforcement to crack down on Antifa and other domestic terrorist organizations led by Stephen Miller. And Stephen, thank you for everything you're doing. Last week, I issued a memo ordering our federal law enforcement agents, DEA, FBI, U.S. Marshals, and ATF to protect ICE officers from Antifa and other radical left-wing violence. Director Patel has been going non-stop. He and Deputy Attorney General Blanche were in Chicago yesterday. While Secretary Noem was in Portland, we are around this country fighting against this domestic terrorism. We had Apple and Google take down the ICE block apps. Hope they continue to comply with that. It's threatening the safety of our federal law enforcement officers. We're not going to stop at just arresting the violent criminals we can see in the streets. Fighting crime is more than just getting the bad guy off the streets. It's breaking down the organization brick by brick. Just like we did with cartels, we're going to take the same approach, President Trump, with Antifa. Destroy the entire organization from top to bottom. We're going to take them apart. Thanks to your bold leadership and the designation of Antifa as a terrorist organization, which is a...
So she said top to bottom, not bottom to top. So top to bottom means money, shadow, back leadership, right? Are they going to start there? Because what would be the best would be to start at the top and then work your way down. That way you arrest the least amount of civilians as possible. Because when you start at the top, you are effectively and officially operating with their soldiers. You know, we could be talking about U.S. senators. We could be talking about, could we possibly be talking about actually doing something about a Mossad connection? Because if Mossad is in Hamas or is Hamas, then why wouldn't they be in Antifa as a anti-Zionist organization? And Trump is going to always cuck for Israel.
It's exactly what they are. Americans will no longer tolerate their unhinged violence. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
He was fired just 3 weeks before he was set to retire.
And now he's becoming an industry whistleblower.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for hosting today and focusing on Antifa and the terrorists that they are. Let's not make any mistake. These individuals do not just want to threaten our law enforcement officers, threaten our journalists, and the citizens of this country. They want to kill them. Their agenda is to destroy the American people and our way of life, and this president is standing in their way. He is stopping them from bringing their death and their destruction to the individual citizens in this country that just want to raise their kids and their grandkids in peace and in safety. I want to also thank everyone around this table for being so bold and so brave, for standing up and recognizing the threat that Antifa is to our way of life, by recognizing how advanced they are, how sophisticated their networks are, how they've infiltrated our entire country, and we're seeing them play out with their tactics from city to city and how they have built out their funding mechanisms. And, sir, I also want to thank our Treasury Secretary for his work in getting to the bottom of these funding mechanisms and individuals who are perpetuating this violence on our American cities. I was in Portland yesterday and had the chance to visit with the governor of Oregon and also the mayor there in town, and they are absolutely covering up the terrorism that is hitting their streets. While you talked about some of the stories of our ICE agents, our Border Patrol agents, how they have been attacked, how they have been shot at, injured, the damage that they've done, these leaders in these local cities, along with Pritzker and Johnson.
Now, let's remember this. If deportation was not the focus in the sanctuary cities of the attention, because the only reason these things are like this is because of sanctuary city conditions. We are not supposed to be doing shit like this. And those sanctuary cities are several kinds of problems based on their view on the race issue, right? They have a poisoned view that minorities just don't commit crimes against Americans and American whites, right? You know, they have a script of that nature. White people do not want this fucking script. They're just like, I don't want to be the guy targeted. Like, what the fuck? Like, people have no idea, and you know, it's kind of like, it's the punishment for ignorance in a very cruel, unnecessary way, because it's about shit that you don't fucking know. And you blaming them for a whole fucking society of fucking obfuscation of what an American fucking knows about anything, to the point where they have to have their fucking lives coming to a short end, right? It's just like, it's the conduct of which the Christian treated the non-Christian. You know, they had to fucking, you know, conquer them so they could convert them before something awful happened. Even though that awful thing was them conquering them. But we also have sometimes, you're just getting conquered because you've objectively fallen apart. Right? Objectively, Mesoamerica was entrenched in dark blood sorcery. I mean, there's no hiding this shit. And they tried. We got like one mythological text of all their of all their scrolls, effectively. You know, what was it, the Popol Vuh, I think, and there were like 8 others or something that were destroyed. I mean, I'm sure there's a deeply archived something or another somewhere, right? But like, but look at the perspective, man. It's just like, you had a certain level of technology, and then you stopped there, and somebody got into way better science, because they knew how to separate their mysticism from their mathematics. And they were able to take their myth and their mystery further than you could. Right? These marks of civilization, your ability to take a complicated idea and everyone agrees and holds it, and it does something for what you're capable of. And then there's a lot of people that end up making very dark decisions with that. There was a certain level of ascension that Mesoamericans hit, and then they took a dark path, and they fell behind in development. It's just personal choices. There's nothing racist going on here, all right? You know, it's just like, some members of the human family need some fucking grace. Because of how dark things were led. It's just like, dude, we're all born like children that don't know goddamn nothing from nothing. Right? We keep acting, you know, I feel like we keep acting, we're just so fucking cruel to the unconscious masses. You know, because we took memes about, like, our frustration about people not waking up really, really far. You know, and we can radicalize ourselves in that manner. And that's what the woke are, right? It's just like, they're just activated towards activism. That's it. That's all the woke is. It's just like, I'm activated, you're a sleeper cell. Right? But you don't know that, because no one has told you yet that your entire world was a fairy tale, fabrication woven around you, because we wanted to let this pervert write a cartoon show. Look at how many perverts have been entertaining us for decades.
Ignore what's going on, or, sir, they're helping Antifa cover it up. We have arrested dozens of individuals that are Antifa members or affiliated with them, and I want to thank our Attorney General for prosecuting them and making sure they never see the light of day again. They have been so bold in making sure we're bringing those individuals to justice. One of the individuals we arrested recently in Portland was the girlfriend of one of the founders of Antifa, and that we are hoping that as we go after her, interview her, and prosecute her, we will get more and more information about the network and how we can root them out and eliminate them from the existence of American society. I want to thank the new journalists here today for telling their stories and for being able and willing to go to the streets and to cover what's happening here in America. Many times the legacy media has looked the other way, refused to tell the stories. The networks have not really focused on what this is and what damage it is doing to our country, and how this network of Antifa is just as sophisticated as MS-13, as TDA, as ISIS, as Hezbollah, as Hamas, as all of them. They are just as dangerous. They have an agenda to destroy us, just like the other terrorists we've dealt with for many, many years. And today is the day that we have a president that won't tolerate it and will stand up and fight for the American people. So thank you for being here, for being so bold, and for standing in the gap at such a time as this. It will matter. It will make a difference, and your life will be one of significance because of what you've done today. So with that.
So, you know, it's foolish not to understand patterns of things, right? When you understand the determination by which the violent means of an organization is willing to go, especially if they're so stupid as to just say it publicly, like Facebook isn't an informant for the FBI. I mean, it's Facebook, FB. It's like Federal Bureau. And then the I is going to be there anyway, and you know, FBI. It's FB. It's Facebook investigation. Fucking. Anyway, we're all telling this horrible entity everything about us because we just needed to tell our friends this way about the butterfly we saw. Right, this is, there's a certain point where, you have to know that they could probably come for you tomorrow, and you have to be at peace with it, because it's not worth it to not live your fucking life freely. And if anybody brings it up, don't get fucking upset. Get real fucking serious. Just to let them know that, yes, I know the consequences are steep. But I'm sick and tired of pretending that I know the magic words to say on legal forms to make problems go away. And I don't want to fucking put the time into that. My soul refuses. You don't like it? Help me do it for me.
God bless you, and thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Cash, please.
Could these mistakes cost you a comfortable retirement? Fisher Investments.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, the American people gave you a sweeping mandate in your victory in this election cycle, and they demanded safety and security for our citizens. And your administration, with your leadership, has provided us with the resources that we need, which is a whole-of-government approach to go after criminals absolutely everywhere, not just outside of this country, but within this country. And that takes a whole-of-government approach. The interagency seated up here with the Department of Homeland Security, our Attorney General, Deputy Attorney General, and your White House staffers, including Stephen Miller's leadership, has allowed us to go out there and map out these networks. What we are doing at the FBI is simple. It does not require rocket science. We are following the money. Money never lies. And that's what it's going to take to bring down this network of organized criminal thugs, gangbangers, and yes, domestic terrorists, because that's what they are. They are harming everyday citizens in every single one of our communities. And the folks you see here on the right and left, they're some of the bravest men and women we have today. They're reporting the stories live time because the mainstream media won't cover it. They're putting their lives on the line. They're standing up for the flag. The least we can do is stand up for them. So you have my thanks. I read more of your stories than I do theirs because you guys are putting out the truth. And we deserve a country where you are protected as equally as they are. We, in this FBI, will go after with the criminals with a vengeance. We will not rest until we find every single seed, money, donor, organization, and funding mechanism that we have. And I want to echo the Secretary's comments on Scott Bessent, who's allowing us to map out these networks through their financial criminal activities, which has been going on for decades. And I would like to remind the American public, they built this disease temple of corruption over decades. And in 8 short months, Mr. President, you have crippled their foundation because of your leadership here, because of the interagency, because of people like Deputy Attorney General Blanche, and because of Attorney General Pam Bondi's fearless leadership to go after criminals wherever they are. They will not be able to hide. They were able to hide.
Now remember, he said decades, plurally. So that means he is also commenting on work that was done under the radar in his first administration. And working backwards, how far back are we talking? I mean, the mob was involved in the organization of the Kennedy assassination, and we have more details about that and their association with the communists.
And conspire with prior administrations, and we are exposing their corruption from within, and we will go to every single city in this country under Operation Summer Heat and the other operations we are doing at the FBI to bring these criminals to justice. We will arrest every single one of them from whatever perch you sit in, private or public, no matter how your goal or your ambition is. It will be crushed by the Constitution because the American people deserve law and order, and that's what we're going to give you.
Thank you very much, Cash. Great job.
So, I mean, like, remember, we already have, like, James Comey's under arrest, right? James Comey may be very helpful, you know, with this, especially if he wants to prove X, Y, and Z about himself. Either way, he would probably be a necessary testimony. For all we know, his arrest is just some bullshit because it's part of a protection strategy and a role that he is playing. Because if he thinks he's innocent, but the crime is real, then where do you go but Barack Obama or a major staffer like his chief of staff? Right? Chief of staff, vice president, or the president. That's the only three people I think Comey could possibly name. And I don't even know how the vice president would be a name. So, long story short is they're talking like, if you're a goddamn fucking senator, your ass is mine if your name pops up, right? He's promising us that if there's big. I mean, it's a question of the scope. How much money are we talking about? If we're literally talking about the global organization, because remember, Antifa, this is a domestic issue, but Antifa is international.
Meg, we'll start over here. Would any of you like to say something? Feel free. You can say it in front of a fine group of people, also journalists and reporters. You want to start?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Absolutely. President Trump, members of the cabinet, really appreciate you guys bringing this together. And the fact that we are here today on such short notice shows how serious you guys are taking this issue of trans terrorists and frankly, the cities and police departments that are cooperating with Antifa, such as Portland. I mean, the Portland politicians are literally willing to sacrifice their own citizens just to appease these Antifa terrorists. It's sickening. I've seen it firsthand, obviously. When I went to jail that night, never expected it to happen. I thought that they were maybe removing me for my own safety. It never crossed my mind that I was the one that was being arrested for a crime after I was just thrown into a hole. I heard from the Department of Homeland Security after I got out of jail, and one of your, I won't say exactly who it was, but somebody very close to Secretary Noem over here, said that they were legitimately worried for my safety in the Portland jail. But luckily the Portland jail was, I was the only one there, essentially, because they don't actually arrest people in Portland, besides conservative journalists, I guess. So, look, I'm glad that it was not a good night for me. Let's just say that. It was not fun sitting in that jail, but I'm glad to see what has come of it. And I've been able to talk to a bunch of FBI agents, ATF agents, DHS agents that I didn't even know existed until I went there and went to that ICE facility. And the morale is at an all-time high. It is so exciting to see these guys know now that they have the backing of the Secretary, the DOJ, as well as the President of the United States, and they are there to do their job. They are going to fulfill this mission and deport these violent criminals. I believe one of the ones that I did ride along with Secretary Noem yesterday, President Trump, and there was a pedophile that had come into the country 5 times over the past 7 years. 7 years. And apparently under the Biden regime, that was just allowed to happen. That was fine. No problem. It's concerning to me that you're seeing...
Now remember, like I said, I want to reiterate my feeling on it about if they're saying top down, we need to hold them accountable to that. Because like I said, this will keep it from being a goddamn dystopian fucking fashionista show where now it's not about rounding up illegals. It's about rounding up black shirts. Okay? So many people misguided thinking that certain harms are being done that are not being done. And there's a different, it's not that the suffering in the world is not fucking happening. The ideas that you're fucking protesting for, but they are so misframed. They're so horribly misframed. And when do we fucking straighten out communicatively for them that? And when does someone of the right voice break through in a way that breaks there's a way to break their game, because their game must kneel to natural law. And it might be that most of the game is within natural law, but there's a critical element that is out of alignment that makes the whole thing unjust. And you have to fix that one piece. So you have to study the case. You have to deep dive into it. You know, you got to go like true crime up and down the chain of events. You know, you have to read 50 fucking books about the fucking incident after fucking 10 years that it's happened, right? Because you find out that it's complicated and it involves top men.
The Portland Police Department, as well as the governor of Oregon and the mayor, of course, coming out and running defense for pedophiles that have entered the country illegally 5 times. It's crazy. I'm glad it's taking a front row seat in the media. And, you know, they're being forced to talk about it in reality because, you know, we're the ones that were on the ground. We're the ones that are actually reporting what's going on. And, you know, much of the legacy media has been either ignoring it or covering for Antifa for years now. So thank you guys so much for taking this seriously. And President Trump, you mentioned that flag. So remember, you put out a truth right after
I'm sorry, I saw that.
took this flag from that man that was burning it in the street.
Do you know who he is?
Oh, yeah, I know exactly who it is.
So why don't you give it to Pam? Give it to the Attorney General, and let's start prosecutions.
Yeah. I actually have a second flag that he tried to burn as well, so I have 2 of them.
Well, you also saw what happened when that flag started burning. Everyone went crazy. And that's when it started, when they started burning the flag. So thank you. If you could give the information, it would be great.
Absolutely.
And at least that horrible night made you famous.
I got a text from the President of the United States, so I appreciate that.
If he wants to really make this very simple idea of flag burn, people go crazy, then he has to talk about, you know, psychological conditioning, right? The discussion really has to be about psychological conditioning for the rationale of that. So it's you know, so it's the psychological conditioning as per how you do criminal profiling, right? This is all Justice Department criminal profiling stuff that we're talking about, right? This is here, we're looking at these kinds of minds from this kind of morality who have decided to take the evil responsibility of government.
President Trump, after that happened to Nick, I called Harmeet Dillon and we opened a pattern and practice investigation into the Portland police very publicly as to how they let this happen.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. President, Brandy Cruz, you're going to hear us be very fired up today, and you can tell, and it's because some of us have been covering Antifa for 15 years and have never had anyone in a position of authority even acknowledge their existence.
And like I've also been saying, that I think that the greatest evil of the police that we have seen has not been the orders that they followed, but it is the fact that they followed stand-down orders. So that's the flip side of the order follower, is when they are ordered not to save you.
And I'll also tell you that I think that had you not done, the single most powerful thing you've done to deal with this scourge has been acknowledging that Antifa is a real thing. I genuinely believe there would be people at these tables who would be dead today and would have been killed in Portland had you not called them a terror organization and said we're going to bring the full weight of the federal government to bear. I talked to Katie Davenport in Portland the other day. She'd been assaulted all summer. And she said the same thing. They didn't seem quick to violence as soon as you made that designation. So they're thinking in their heads. They're worried. There's been 24 or so arrested in Portland. They don't want to go to federal prison. There's this video of them, one of them who was in the face of an ICE agent, and then he's in custody shaking. Once you take the mask off, they're nothing. And I was told by probably a dozen people not to tell you this. I'm going to tell it to you anyway, because it's relevant to what we're talking about. I'm living proof that you can recover from TDS. I had strong Trump derangement syndrome for probably 8 years. This is one of the reasons I recovered from it. And by the way, it's much better to not have TDS. I'm happier, I'm healthier, more successful. I even think I got a little more attractive after I got rid of my Trump derangement syndrome. Yes. You know, I'm a reporter in Seattle, and frankly, I could not care any less what any of you have to say about this meeting. Could not care any less. We're not here for you. I'm not here to convince any of you that Antifa is a real thing, because if you have not come to that conclusion by now, you are never going to come to that conclusion because you don't want to see it. And you're going to go and you're going to say it's a bunch of right-wing conservative influencers who are here spinning a tale. I was one of you. I was a mainstream reporter in Seattle for 10 years. I was a TV reporter on the streets doing my job, and I was still assaulted by Antifa. So it's not about being conservative. It's about people who go there and show what they're doing. And when I saw, after all those years, that the media wouldn't be honest about what was happening, that Democratic politicians wouldn't be honest about what was happening, I thought, well, gosh, if they're not being honest about that, maybe they're not being honest about President Trump either. And it opened my mind to just looking at things for what they were. And now I find you quite funny, actually. Now, it's like I said, I'm much happier about it. But, for me, again, I could not care any less the stories that they go to print. This is what I care about. We have 3.5 years. Nothing is guaranteed, although I think if Democrats keep it up...
And listen, dude, her testimony is fucking real as shit, right? It's fucking real as shit. And people that go through that flip, they may not be on the higher level right now, but someone like her, it's like, she's not fucking, condemning her liberal values. She probably has her absolute love for homosexuals and trans and everyone else. But looking at what this is a different situation. And at the end of the day, there aren't enough anarchists setting up militias to take care of Antifa ourselves. So therefore, other organizations that operate under the organizing principle of which we identify our common bonds as a people, because we're not all hermits all the time. We live in a society that this thing exists, and we have poorly chosen to make this thing a government. It's going to exist, whatever the fuck this thing is. It shouldn't be a government, but I'm pretty sure it needs to fucking exist.
We'll probably have Republican presidents for the next 3 decades. But nothing is guaranteed, and so what I want to see over the next 3.5 years is a full court press to dismantle Antifa once and for all in a meaningful way. I know, Andy, we talked before this about some ideas. That's really what we want to... I don't care what the media says. I don't care what Democrats say. They will never wake up to this fact. So we want the federal government to take as many of these cases as possible, look at the interstate travel between Portland and Seattle when it comes to these people who are committing violent acts, and hopefully in 3.5 years, they will be a shell of their former selves.
Closer to, and it's Antifa and many others,
yes.
Unfortunately. There are many others, bad ones. Most have been named terrorist organizations. There are a couple that we're going to, but I think we've got it pretty well covered. But there are many others, but very specifically today is Antifa, and it's really bad, and we're going to get it cleaned up. Andy, do you have something? Thank you very much. I'm glad you no longer have TDS. I feel very good about that. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Adam Ferrari, the Chief Executive Officer of Phoenix Energy. I look forward to you joining.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the Cabinet. I have a lot of gratitude and a little bit about my background. I'm born in Portland, Oregon, from there. And growing up, it's always been left-wing, very progressive, and I liked it. It had cafes and artists and those who lived a bohemian lifestyle. And in 2016, I was a graduate student at Portland State studying political science. I was an editor at the student paper there, a very progressive paper, and I was assigned to cover the election night demonstrations. Well, the elections night protests turned to riots, 3 days of violent rioting in Portland, and it was the first time that I saw groups dressed in black with their faces covered. This was 4 years before COVID. Some of them were waving the black flag of anarchism, some the red flag of Marxism. And within seconds, they would ravage one street to another, to another, to another. And the next day, I would read the legacy media, which I still read at that time and looked forward to, and I looked up to those journalists. And I was really shocked to see that the narrative was that these, in my view, anti-democratic political violence was legitimate acts of protest because people were concerned about racism or all these other lies. And so for the next 4 years, I just continued going out with my video camera. I thought, look, people can ignore what I write because of spin, but videos can quite speak for themselves. And in 2019, it led to me nearly losing my life. I was covering another Antifa protest turned riot. At that point, had been routine in Portland, and then I was ambushed in a mob beating. And I had never been in a fight. I didn't even realize that I was being assaulted until seconds in. And the punches came from everywhere on my head and my face, and I was bleeding out of my eyes and ears. And then they threw all the drinks in my eyes to humiliate me further and to laugh at me. And I was rushed to the hospital in an ambulance and CT scan, and I had subarachnoid hemorrhage, which is bleeding the brain. I nearly died. And after surviving that, the reporting that I saw in liberal media it seemed to suggest that I had deserved it because they branded me far right. And some even went so far as to suggest that I mean...
Now remember, Andy No is goddamn motherfucking world famous. Like, what he is talking about, I believe, was caught on camera. Because he's always filming. That's what he's doing. He's there. He's a witness. He is a witness. Right? These roundtable participants are witnesses. Witness is a very powerful thing. You should be checking out James True, by the way, if you want some good stuff that keeps you from fucking being mesmerized by Trump like he's some awesome and great thing, right? Watch what James True's been doing. Check out James True.
Maybe faked my injuries. A BuzzFeed reporter asked for my medical records, which I did provide, but this felt so, it's like because I didn't die in that attack, there was another round of people who wanted to finish me off. But I continued, and then 2020, Portland was really the epicenter of the longest political violence. Those months of riots, I was on the ground, undercover, and there was an assassination there. There was a supporter of Donald Trump named Aaron Danielson who was shot dead by a self-described Antifa member who then fled out of state and died in a shootout with U.S. Marshals. In 2021, I returned undercover, naively thinking that enough time had passed, and was chased through the streets of downtown and beaten, nearly choked out.
So by the way, if you saw him a few seconds ago, I'm going to do a little body languaging on you here, just because because also I pick up and try to read things like body language. Just like you just should if you've got the visuals there. Look at what the fuck people are acting like and looking like deliberately. And he raised up. He was very. That's when a dog raises his ears to hear. Like, he's really listening. He's really, right? So just this subtle raise, right? To be like, I'm taking in everything that you were saying in real time, right? So the mind is fully engaged here, right? Lighting can be a funny thing. It's the question of which Trump is this? There are two. There is silver Trump and gold Trump. I want to say that this is our blonde Trump. Blonde Trump, I believe, is the one that puts on the more he might be the one that's doing more of the stuff that I like, that I see going on. Like, this is the pro-weed Trump, right? That's my, part of my imagination, because I listened to this and I said, if we can keep them from turning this into a lie, it's not bad the way everything is discussed to make people understand the action that is in effect now. Because this is all in effect, the results of this.
The person who was trying to choke me out held me so tightly that I had the blood, the vessels in my eyes burst. So one of the symptoms were my eyes were completely red after that, and I was hospitalized. So thank you so much for acknowledging Antifa and for directing your administration to treat them as domestic terrorists. It's going to be really challenging because how they organize is that they are decentralized, autonomous, and they operate on deception. And we're still to this day told that they don't exist, that it's a figment of our imagination. I think the DOJ could look at federal conspiracy charges. The state of California and San Diego County last year broke up an Antifa cell in San Diego. And I think maybe perhaps the State Department should designate Antifa, its international arm, as a foreign terrorist organization, FTO. So thank you so much for this invitation, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Andy. Great. That's a rough time you had, huh? So the chokeout was almost the end, you felt?
Yeah, that was my only near-death experience in my life, and I'm quite shaken when I think about it now. It really feels unbelievable to me that on the streets of America that this type of violence against citizens could become so routine and accepted and cheered on by people. Although, in the immediate aftermath of Mr. Kirk's assassination, we saw again that type of depravity play out on quite large swaths of the left. So there's a deep sickness that's in this country right now, and it pains me a lot to acknowledge it.
Yeah, the amazing thing is you look at Portland, and you see fires all over the place. You see fights and, just violence. It's just so crazy. And then you talk to the governor, and she acts like everything is totally normal. There's nothing wrong. It's almost like, are you waking up from a dream or something? You see it on your network. You see it all over the place. And it's so bad. It's so crazy. It's like the movies you see for the kids. I guess not only the kids, adults also, where you have these bombed out cities and these bombed out people. It's like worse than that. I don't think they could make a movie as bad. And then the governor will get up and say, I don't know why they're coming here. It's such a wonderful place. And the amazing thing is the people want us to be there. The people, when they get the real people that live there, many of them have left, but the real people want us to be there. The same thing in Chicago. So they've had 60, 70 murders over a short period of time. Murders. People that got shot. They've had hundreds of people shot. And then a guy like Pritzker, or this low IQ mayor, gets up. He got up. He's got a 5% approval rating. And the people are all against him. They want people to come. Beautiful black women are wearing a MAGA hat last night on television. Beautiful people. And they said, we don't care who comes, just stop the crime. They don't care, frankly, they don't care if it's National Guard and military. Send in anybody you want, stop the crime. And they're afraid to go out. They can't even go out. And then a guy like Pritzker, think of that. 50, 60, 70 people over a short period of murder.
Right. So like he's bringing up like these are women that are calling it in, right? Like there are no men that can keep this under control. Right? So men have to be imported from an organized and trusted source. So bring in anybody from an organized and trusted source. I mean, look, man, you could fucking militia up right now and go fucking help. You can go fucking militia up. You could contact. I bet you $1 million they'd let you fucking do it. You militia up right now, and you said like, hey, listen, where we want to go and do a thing. Like, you want to have you need some help, man. Like, you can deputize us. Or whatever, have an agent with us. We'll go in and we'll do the thing. We'll meet up with the agent there. He'll hang out with us to see our conduct. We're in control, but he will prosecute us if we break the law, right? Or something like that. And he'll basically be their liability shield. They'll sit there, situations, say like, it's just like, all right. Hey, buddy, do I risk prosecution if I shoot these guys under X, Y, and Z circumstances? And he says yes. Okay, good to know. I can't promise you I'm not going to shoot them, but it's fair that I will see a court date. I don't want to hurt any of these kids, but they can't be doing what they're doing no more, right? So who's going to answer the call, right? Like, do we want to just pretend all of our women are fucking shield maidens? Are we psychopaths? The left is like that. The left thinks that the women can fucking fend for themselves or some shit. And it's all these fucking, masculated women fighting on the front lines of ICE facilities. And the ICE facilities have been basically perfect for, the ICE facilities have been perfect because they get to run drills, just like they get to take a long time to see what are they like. What are they like over time? How do their strategies change, right? Because you know that they're going to fail because everything is constructed precisely to stop this kind of thing. Anyway, let's go.
Actually murdered, mostly gun violence, but knives, but gun violence. They're murdered, and hundreds of people shot. They had one weekend where they had like 18 murdered and 71 shot. But they said, you know what their excuse is? Yeah, but it was a long weekend. In other words, it was a long weekend, so that was okay. And then Pritzker gets up and he says, like, I don't know what they're talking about. We don't have crime here. They're crazy. I think actually they're petrified. Their families live there, everything else. I actually think they're scared. Pritzker was a failure in his family. They threw him out of the family business. Guy's a loser. But you know what? I believe they're scared. They're actually frightened for their lives. Jack, please say a few words.
Celebrate Paleo Valley's Earth Day sale and get 30 sticks for only $36. If you're someone who cares...
Mr. President, thank you so much for having us here today and holding this roundtable. Antifa is real. Antifa has been around in various iterations for almost 100 years in some instances, going back to the Weimar Republic in Germany. And it's now...
Right, so here we have the invocation of the Weimar Republic. Right? So this administration is treating it with the same serious precedent of how that was. And back then, it was the same thing with anarchy. They've been profaning the name of anarchy all the way back, right? The anti-fascist organization and other anarchist organizations of their time period It was this weird time where all of a sudden everybody was using incendiary devices, right? Back in the day, like you just didn't run around and you didn't have all the fucking shit to make like a Molotov cocktail, or you had to do like torches and stuff, or you didn't have anything that exploded very much, right? It's just it was a big heavy lead ball thing that would explode or whatever. You didn't quite have hand grenades for a while, like not on the level where you could use them in guerrilla campaigns. But then the circumstances of technology and the markets shifted, and people that were disgruntled with a certain way of America exploited that. Today they seem to be exploiting PVC pipe.
It's been just under 1 month since we saw a far leftist murder Charlie Kirk, and we saw thousands upon thousands of people, other far leftists and people in positions of authority, people like nurses and pilots and doctors and HR departments, celebrating the death and the murder of Charlie Kirk. The sickness that's out there is absolutely real. And Mr. President, thank you for mentioning the fact that one of the bullet casings read, "Hate."
Now, although the shooter, although maybe the patsy that they have here, although we have actually, to be honest, we have no idea what if any level of engagement at this point. I mean, it's something to do with I suppose he should have been arrested. Either way, I don't believe he's the guy who shot him. Not because he couldn't take the shot, but just because the circumstances suggest he was never the guy on the roof. Meaning that he was meant to rendezvous with the guy on the roof, but that's not what happened, and his gun was never used. Somebody else brought a different gun to the roof, if it was the roof shooter and not the back shooter, or the camera guy somebody wants to drive us crazy. I think that there are several misdirection agents, so that way it looks like any of several people could have shot him. And already his security team has shown suspicious behavior on camera. So, either way, the reaction by Antifa to what happened to Charlie Kirk, that no doubt is why we are here today.
"Hey fascist, catch" on it. One of the other bullet casings right next to that had Bella Ciao written on it. Now, Bella Ciao is a song that is known in Antifa circles as the international anthem of Antifa. And all of us around this room that have studied Antifa, we're very familiar with these symbols. And Mr. President, I think the situation is getting worse. When you look at people like Luigi Maggioni in his 20s, Thomas Matthew Crooks, of course, who took a shot at you, sir, the ICE shooter in Dallas, and now this Tyler Robinson, we're starting to see a pattern of more and more murderous violence. And this same violence is not just random. It is targeted assassinations, which are getting worse. And every single one of us in this room that goes out there, and obviously you as well, sir, and all the staff, we are now under that threat every single day. And working there at Turning Point USA, and I've spent just about the last month out there in Phoenix with Erica, with the family, with the team. And I will tell you this, Mr. President, even though going through something like that, which is an absolute nightmare, and people say, what was it like to speak in front of all those people? It's horrible. Every second of it was horrible. But we're not going to quit. And Turning Point USA is continuing the tour that Charlie was on. We had 6,000 people when we went back to Utah. We had 5,000 people last night in Montana, if you can believe that. We are continuing to organize on campus. We are getting more and more people coming out in the face of this threat, knowing what happened to Charlie. But Mr. President, we need to do something about this, because I fear that the next one who could be killed could be sitting at this table right now. And we're not going to stop, but they need to stop, and they will not stop until they are stopped. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. I appreciate it very much. One thing I have to say is that Washington, D.C. was almost as bad. I don't know what could be worse than Portland. You don't even have stores anymore. They don't even put glass up. They put plywood on their windows. But most of the retailers have left. But Washington, D.C. was so bad. And Pam, I'd say it took 12 days to really make it pretty good. and a month to make it great. And now people are going out to dinner. The restaurants are booming. They don't have enough seats. They're opening up new restaurants because many of them closed. And people are walking down the street totally safe. A reporter, I'm not sure if she's there. I can't see somebody reported that she is. She was violently assaulted. And I don't know, she tends to be somewhat liberal, but she wasn't liberal on this one. I appreciated your honesty, but that won't happen again. It won't happen again. You're lucky you're alive, frankly, with what happened. I know exactly what took place. So Washington, D.C., our capital, we thought we'd start there appropriately, and it's safe, and people are so happy. They're so happy. And now it's a couple of months. I went to dinner there. I felt totally safe. I gave a press conference right in the middle of the street, which I don't think Secret Service was thrilled about. But, I'll tell you what, I wouldn't have wanted to do it 6 months ago. It's incredible what happened. Now we're in Memphis. As you know, we're having a great impact in Memphis. It's been only a week, but it's, Cash, I hear it's been amazing what's happening there just very early. But you take a look at D.C. and you take a look at some of the other. We've had a big impact there. What we haven't said, because Pritzker said, well, crime is going down in Chicago. Well, 5 months ago, Cash went to Chicago with a lot of FBI agents just to prepare it so that we went in with, I guess you could call it a surge, call it whatever you want, but would be even more effective. And we're going to be doing that, and very, very strongly doing that, because Chicago is a very unsafe city. It's a great city. The head of the Union Pacific Railroad said, sir, please, save Chicago. It's a great city. It can be saved. Other cities are gone. I mean, they're lost. They can get better, but they've been so decimated. But I'm so proud of what they've done so quickly in D.C., and it's taking place quickly in Memphis, where we were asked to go by the mayor and by the governor. And it's really incredible what we can do and how fast we can do it. Let's go for two more. Would you like to go? And then, Katie, you'll go. Okay, please.
Thank you, Mr. President, for having us here. And not to sound like a broken record, but it needs to be said that Antifa is real. It's real. It's a threat. I just saw them last weekend over in Portland while they were causing mayhem over there. And the reason why there's such a big problem is because we have Democrats and a lot of people in the mainstream media refusing to acknowledge that they even exist, right? So how can we as a country begin to address it if we have large swaths of these people who are supposedly decision makers and people who are supposed to inform? They don't want to say that it exists. Because the common argument is like, well, they're not a real organization because there's no national leadership, they don't have a national headquarters, so how can law enforcement go after a group that doesn't exist like that? Well, law enforcement goes after criminal groups that organize to rob banks or do smash and grabs. They don't have a registered LLC, they don't have official membership cards, they don't have a business address, but law enforcement still goes after them because they're working as a group. These people don't just show up randomly at the same time to do the same thing dressed in a very similar fashion, espousing the same ideology. And they say, well, it's an ideology. It's like, well, yes, it's an ideology because there's people alive, present, that believe in it, and they're acting on it. And so I've been very well aware of what Antifa's been doing. I was very busy during the riots in 2020. That was probably my most exposure to them prior to.
That's an important point, because this has been a contention of gaslighting from Antifa themselves, because they're snakes. They don't own what they are.
This year.
And obviously you're not going to own yourself as a, quote, criminal, but, you ultimately are saying that, yeah, I'm raising an army to stand against you. But you don't want to say that because, that is an insurrection.
I've been at the ICE facility at Broadview. I'm originally from the Chicagoland area, unfortunately, but that's where I grew up around. Like I said, I was in Portland. I was covering the riots in Los Angeles as well. And probably one of the most disturbing parts about that is, in addition to Antifa being present, they were tagging the streets with CJNG, which is Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generación, which is a cartel. So you have these people who are working basically in concert with other terrorist groups to say that we're here, we're present, and we're gonna attack federal agents and people who are gonna expose what we do. And so, to be clear, political violence, sustained political violence that we're seeing in this country, is not a both sides issue. I was I was at Charlie Kirk's memorial in Glendale recently. Conservative gathering, totally peaceful. It was the most peaceful gathering that I've been at. Every other time that I've been covering violence in the streets, just this year, just this year, it's always been from left-wing people, radical left-wing people. And it's not even just Antifa anymore. The shooting that happened in, the defensive shooting that happened in the Chicago area, that wasn't someone dressed in black bloc. That was just somebody that had taken upon themselves to go out and try to interfere and ram federal vehicles. So people are becoming more and more radicalized, and it was to be expected, unfortunately. And the reason why we're in this position today is because after I was done covering the riots, I was at the border, from the San Diego sector all the way down to the Rio Grande Valley sector, covering the border crisis month after month. And we all knew the solution to that. We all knew why it was happening. It's because, well, it's racist to have a border. So, well, actually, it's not, but okay. And so it required you to come back into office and to fix the problem, but it's no longer just a border issue. It's a nationwide issue, and that's one of the reasons why you got elected back into office, because thankfully the American people said we're not going to deal with it anymore. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people, as we've seen, who are willing to take to the streets to do violence. And that's a scary thing, because typically when I was in 2020, I was covering Minneapolis, Los Angeles, Portland, Seattle. I was over in Chaz, and that was to be expected. But now, because the issue of immigration, illegal immigration, is so widespread, riots can happen anywhere. Attacks can happen anywhere. So that's why it was weird kind of going back to my home state to cover this violence. I mean, just after the Dallas shooting, they were chanting outside Broadview, shoot ICE, shoot those efforts, shoot those efforts. So I'll just leave that. Thank you so much again for having this. This is very dangerous. We don't work for companies that have billions of dollars. We're running and gunning often on our own. we became friends. A lot of us are friends because we would see each other all the time, and we became friends because we wanted to have someone watch our back while we're out there. Because, like I said, we're just out there, and but we'll continue to do it because it's an important topic, it's an important issue. The American people deserve to know what's happening in these chaotic situations, and we're more than happy to do it. So thanks.
Great job. Thank you very much. Katie, please.
Hi, Mr. President.
I ran for the Attorney General to uphold the law, to uphold our Constitution.
It is an honor being here today, and I first wanted to start by thanking you guys for designating Antifa a terrorist group. It's exactly what this group is. It's a long time coming. I'm an investigative journalist from Seattle. I work for the Post Millennial alongside Andy Ngo and Jack Posobiec. I have been infiltrating Antifa cells in Seattle and Portland for the past decade. I know their inner workings, and Antifa uses extreme political violence to crush the civil rights of their political enemies and believes that violence is justified by any means necessary. But today, I want to focus on what is happening in Portland at the ICE facility. I've been covering this for the past 4 months, and this is a call out to corporate media who has completely ignored this story or has falsely reported on it. This is nothing short other than a sustained attack on the United States, which is being supported by Democratic elected officials. The Portland Police Bureau has completely abandoned several blocks outside the ICE facility, giving away their jurisdiction to a terrorist group who has spent the past 4 months harassing, assaulting, and intimidating anyone they perceive to be against their cause. Not only have federal agents been relentlessly assaulted for more than 100 consecutive days, black-clad anarchist militants concealing their identities behind black facial coverings have been assaulting reporters just for trying to cover their crimes. Today, I'm sitting here with a black eye and a concussion after being violently hit in the face with a metal pole while reporting outside the ICE facility just this past week. After the attack, I immediately went to three Portland police officers who refused to detain the suspect. I took the time to chase down the suspect in the streets, had her held for 35 minutes. I was waiting for Portland police to come, and they never came. Then that's what opened my eyes to what this group is actually doing. I watched 20 Antifa militants help my assault suspect escape into an Antifa safe house that is 1 block away from the ICE facility. And this safe house is where Antifa-affiliated protesters are conducting paramilitary operations. It's where they're arresting, they're showering, they're eating to continue this occupation. I have staked out this safe house and have observed shift changes. This group is highly organized. It is being funded through mutual aid groups, and they have no plans of stopping. Residents living across the ICE facility have been held hostage by Antifa. They're begging for federal intervention. The city refuses to help, and they want you, President Trump, to come in and restore law and order. I want to stress the importance of taking this situation seriously because when I first started reporting on this occupation, I went undercover in Blacklock. I talked to these Antifa militants. I lasted for about a month. They believe that ICE agents are the Nazi Gestapo who need to be killed. They told me that directly, and I think that if this situation is not taken as seriously as it is, it's just a matter of time before someone gets killed. And thank you for having me.
Thank you, Katie. That's pretty incredible. The only question nobody can answer is why. Why are they doing this? They're like insurrectionists. They're terrible people. But you really wonder why. Why are they doing it? What are they gaining other than they're obviously paid? They're paid a lot of money. Go ahead, please.
Mr. President, if I can answer that question, the reason why they're doing it is because the same media that's sitting in this room with us has declared all of us at this table Nazis and fascists, and they've been doing this for years. This is why Antifa feels emboldened to attack us. Now, almost every single person at this table has been threatened with a steel bat. We've been assaulted, we've been harassed, we've been threatened, and that is in huge part due to the media. So my message right now is for you guys. Because 2 years ago, or back in 2020, by the way, I was censored for my reporting on Antifa here in Washington, D.C. You were talking about how safe it is now, Mr. President. It wasn't so safe back then. Back in 2020, I watched as a father was being mobbed and surrounded by Antifa members as his terrified, crying children looked on and the police here did nothing. I watched as a woman had her hair violently ripped out of her skull simply for waving an American flag on the streets of Washington, D.C. And by the way, if you guys try to go and find any of this footage, you won't find any of it because Twitter deleted all of it because our president shared my reporting and they deleted my entire account immediately after. So now, if you want to know what happened in 2020, all you're going to see is the media headlines that said it was fiery but mostly peaceful. Thanks for that one, CNN. The reality is that it was an extremely violent period of time, and for the last 10 years, Antifa has been wreaking havoc on law-abiding and innocent American citizens, and it needs to end. Now, I'm with Turning Point USA. It's an honor to be here, Mr. President. Thank you guys so much, everybody in the administration, for giving us a seat at the table, because the media has not only been demonizing us for so long, but immediately after the brutal assassination of our founder, Charlie Kirk, our Turning Point USA chapters have seen an uptick in violence across the nation as Antifa chapters that are embedded in our universities go and target them. It's been extremely difficult to report on the ground, and for a long time I was afraid to go to Portland because I knew that
Now, let's not forget that, Charlie and Erica, are pretty much an invention of the Trump dynasty, because the friendship factor between the families of these and the professional associations through the Miss Arizona, Miss USA situation, and Charlie's dad in business. So Turning Point, it's not like it's not like Trump hasn't been watching Turning Point from get-go, right? This is equivalent, like the death of Charlie Kirk is the equivalent of killing his godson, right? This was like a godson to Don. Regardless of what you think and what I think, because I think that he was kind of like a slaughtered lamb of God ritual sacrifice situation, and thus that ritual is doing this. I'm not saying that Don ordered him ritually sacrificed, but I'm just saying I'm reading the occult symbolism. That's my job.
The only people who would have my back, like Julio said, were one of my friends on the ground because there is no police force there. I was terrified to go because I knew if I got shot or stabbed, and I have been assaulted, I've been mobbed and robbed in Austin, Texas by Antifa, that nobody would come to help me. So my plea to the entire administration, especially to the DOJ, is every single radical left-winger who was in front of the ICE facility in Chicago, in New York, in Portland, please make sure that you use the full force of the law to come after each and every single one of them, because it is us being soft on left-wing violence that has fomented all of the terror that we have seen in this country, and it is the left-wing getting away time and time again with assaulting law-abiding American citizens that has led us to this place. So truly, to the Americans that I speak to on the ground, they feel completely abandoned by their state and local government. So please step in. You have Americans begging for the National Guard. And to the media over here, please report on the truth. Please do your jobs. I'm an American citizen. Everybody at this table simply views ourselves as American citizens who have an iPhone and the will.
And just to make things clear, that right-wing violence does exist. It's what happens when conservatives turn a blind eye to when their agents, police officers or whatever in our body politic do wrong, and they say nothing, right? And it's also about the consequences, because not the consequence, and I mean the consequences of what they had been turning a blind eye to, right? We have been trying to heal from decades, generations of the neocon ideology in conservatism as the predominant right-wing thinking. And everybody on the right-wing spectrum is somewhere along those lines. You are police state all the way, and you are definitely want to have friendly cops on every corner if you don't want a police state. You know, this is conservative universe. It's all somewhere in that vein of things, because as long as everything seems peaceful and civil, then there is no evil that we could possibly be doing. Right? And there are different manners of things that you have to that make the difference, right? Because at the end of the day, people feel like the police is weaponized against them. I don't see that as the case anymore. Now, because all this is now pure political in the sense of the consequence of the people that are proactively against something they don't want to exist as a policy, which would be the ability to enforce the concept of our nation. How do you fucking reconcile that? Because everybody understands that if we don't have the income, if we don't have the capital, and a communist country has to work with everyone has to work with capital. It's just that you have different economic theories. Capitalism is about the capital itself being the thing, and I don't have a better explanation of that because I'm not an economist. I just like being able to do my thing. That's what I like to do. I like to do my thing on my terms, and I know that my terms need to be with something that has no strings attached, because I don't trust anybody, because every time I did, the strings were pulled, and I walked away instead of putting up with it. And that's why it's taken me a very, very long time to grow in the economic system. So, if capitalism has to be like that, then I am not a capitalist. If it doesn't have to be like that, then I would still like to be a capitalist. Anyway, that's a very long train of thought I was going with here.
Will to actually tell the truth. So please take your job seriously and tell the truth to the American people. And thank you for letting me be here on behalf of Charlie to continue his legacy of cleaning up the country. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Wow, you feel very strongly, I can see.
I'm mad. I got beat up so many times, Mr. President. My friends have gotten beaten up, and I want to cry right now from happiness because we have been completely ignored for so long. For almost 10 years, we've been getting assaulted on the streets. I have watched children cry as their parents have been attacked on the streets. That should not be happening at our nation's capital. So please, again, the DOJ, please utilize the full force and go after each and every single one of these people.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Great.
Now, you also got to remember, like, here's another reason why I care about, like, not having Antifa exist anymore. Is that Antifa has been used to shield people from being capable of having rational conversations about several things, right? Because the globalization process, which had been fucking over all sorts of people, and for a long time was intended to definitely not fuck over white guys. Because if it were, they'd be paying attention, but, I mean, granted it was, but narratively speaking, it was all kind of revolving around, if you're not talking about the Illuminati, you're talking about Israel, and Zionism. Which is hard to avoid that in the Illuminati conversation. And you also have to be careful that some of that is a right-wing psyop. You can get lost in that too, right? All we know for certain is that Israel gets special treatment. Israel is above suspicion. And that's a problem. That's a big fucking problem. You're not supposed to treat anybody special like that. But somebody is implying that their religious beliefs are leaning too much into their foreign policy. And that's what also makes people hate Israel, is that it's a nation that's justifying a religion that has caused a lot of suffering in its name. And there's a kind, and there's, it's just like, you can read up about the wrongs and the sins of the Jews. You can read up all sorts of people telling you about what it was like for them. Dude, there's a lot of third world shit going on. Jews are just as, like, capable of being third world stupid. There's no intelligent race. There are races making decisions, right? And there's people that are breaking from the decisions of their race to be independent. Or there's parts of their race that they don't want to show you that are very smart to make you think that that race is stupid, right? It's just like, it's always like that. It's always one of those things. It depends on where their ethnic soul is at, and that's a changeable variable. White man was not always on top. We started on the bottom, actually, because we're the new kids on the block. And you get slave from Slav. So white people were the first indentured servants by name, right? unless we want to talk about what the word for slave was in North Africa, the Middle East, and the East. Right? Is it etymologically connected to the word Slav? Long story short is that we're dealing with a lot of imagination because of the obfuscation of the witness. These are witnesses that are being allowed to be clearly heard.
Great job. Impassioned. That's important because you should feel like that. Please, go ahead.
Mr. President, thank you for having us here and bringing together this panel of brave journalists, everybody on this side of the room. And no one can speak to the violence better than these people here. So I think we know that this is not just a story about violence and chaos, as you alluded to, Mr. President. This is a money story. And at the Government Accountability Institute, my colleague and I, Peter Schweitzer and our team, we follow the money. And we followed it to the top of what we call the protest industrial complex, Riot Inc., and we found a network of NGOs. It's not just the Soros network, the Open Society network. It's other funding networks, the Arabella funding network, the Tides funding network, Neville Roy Singham and his network, Foreign Cash. And it's also big left-wing funders. Some of them are not citizens of this country. Mr. Hans-Jörg Wyss of Switzerland. They're pouring money into this entire...
So we've already got names, right? So those names have just been dropped. That's about as serious as a heart attack. I would expect those names to be seeing prosecutions in the near future. Probably all of those names, I think.
Entire ecosystem. And so I want to share 3 money facts with you about what we call Riot Inc. Number 1, like any corporation, Riot Inc. has many divisions. It doesn't just have the Antifa boots on the ground division. It has PR divisions. It has marketing divisions. It has a very well-funded legal division to get these boots on the ground back on the streets as quickly as possible. But it does have those investors that I mentioned. Number 2, we have identified dozens of radical organizations, not just the decentralized Antifa organizations, but dozens of radical organizations that have received more than $100 million from the Riot Inc. investors. These would be the lawyer groups. These would be the groups that advocate for calling good, honest Americans fascists, etc. And then 3, I think
let's not also forget the cashless bail apparatus. Anybody that was involved in the cashless bail apparatus, they, I would suspect, are corrupted by this same entity.
The most shocking thing is that we have found that more than $100 million in U.S. taxpayer funding has flowed into these funding networks, including at least $4 million to these very groups themselves, not just Antifa types, but there was an event in Atlanta called Stop Cop City. Over 60 rioters were charged with domestic terrorism. These groups received...
So this is why I don't file taxes. I don't care what happens to me. The IRS wants to come after me, be like, fine. Fine, come after me. You're upset? You're upset that Antifa didn't get my money? Right? They can have every tax off of every little latte I buy at Starbucks, every little hammer I pick up at Home Depot. They can have their fucking sales tax. And just have a robust economy, and you won't even need to have a high sales tax. It's all about crippling people, man. You just keep that tax in the commerce section. It'll work itself out.
Money for that from both the billionaire class as well as taxpayer money. So one other thing, this money helps fund the decentralized crowdfunding platforms. These are ways that Antifa, the John Brown Gun Club of Elm Fork, which had links to that attack on the ICE facility, the Socialist Rifle Association, and just because they don't have LLCs or EIN numbers doesn't mean they can't get paid. Some of these funding platforms, crowdfunding platforms, are funded by this network that we call Riot Inc. So, again, I want to thank you for your leadership, for the whole cabinet's leadership on this.
Okay, so
we're going to keep...
He mentioned the Socialist Rifle Association. That's the pro-gun left-wing people, right? I don't want to have a problem with left-wing people that want to be pro-gun. I think that it's good because it keeps the other side in check, and it makes you think, right? Because not that everything that they're doing is justifiable, because a lot of them are fucking emotionally unhinged and shit. But if you can't tell that person might do something horrible to you for what you're doing, then you're a fool or you're baiting them, right? And it's just like, are you being productive? Are you being constructive? Because there was a time where all of that joking and trolling was good and necessary, but so many people went past due on it, and it's no longer a mark of cool rebellion, right? Because things really evened out. Like, people know what the fuck they want at this point, whether the big industries are going to create anything for what the people want. This is why Hollywood is failing, because nobody wants it, and nobody's even for, like, there are no more movie stars, man. They're gone. The movie stars are gone. Isn't that something? Right? I mean, you don't realize that they're gone because of how they're being put out, right? But, like, there is no Hollywood apparatus anymore. Because their streets aren't safe to do their thing. They asked for the end of public safety, and they're surprised that they are unsafe.
Following the money, and appreciate everything you're doing, sir.
Do you know the name of any of the funders? Do you know the names? Because if you do, I'd like you to give them to Cash or Pam.
Absolutely.
Or Christy.
Yeah, we'll do that.
As soon as you can. That's all of you. Because you probably know the names after a certain period of time. You tend to find out. But these are people that do not have good intention for the country, and that's treasonous probably. So if you could, very important, if you could do that, it would be great. Nobody would know better than you. You'll figure it out. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Monday.com, the opposite of any work platform we tried in the past. We tried other work management platforms, not.
Yeah, my name's Nick Shirley. I'm 23 years old. I'm a 100% independent YouTube journalist, and over the past year or so, I've been able to go to 15 countries. I've hung out with people in the gangs of Brazil, in the favelas, in the prisons of Secot, but yet the most dangerous places I have been here in the United States, unfortunately. And I've had the opportunity to show people about the protest, Antifa here in the United States, and there's nothing organic about what they are doing here in the United States. I've watched people be busted in from states. I've watched the same lady at a protest in Atlanta be busted to protest in D.C. and then in New York City. There's nothing that is honest about what they are doing. And they have signs. I've seen the same signs here in D.C. and in London as well. It's a big organization and corporation that they're running. And people may wonder, like, what's the threat to us as Americans if we go? Well, you'll be labeled as a fascist, you'll be labeled as a Nazi, and they'll wish death upon you because they wish death upon me. And just last week in Portland, Oregon, I watched a lady get trapped in her car, surrounded by Antifa, and her sister messaged me after seeing the video. She said, the only reason I think my sister was safe is because you were there recording. I also was chased out by a member of Antifa who said he would smoke me, and next thing he knew, a DHS sniper had lasers on his chest. If he was not there, who knows what would have happened that day. These people are very dangerous, and people wonder how they're able to do it. It's the reason is because these cities are not enforcing the law. And why should these people be worried if the law is not being enforced? And we are not far right, nor are we far wrong. We're just right. And the truth about what's happening here in America with these groups is very dangerous, and I thank you, Mr. President, and your administration as well for acknowledging that.
Thank you very much. It's too bad you have to go through it.
I know,
Thank
it's
you very
crazy,
much.
right, Mr. President?
Well, you're going to get to the bottom of it, so it's a very important thing you're doing. Thank you very much. Please, Ken.
Yeah, I just got something very short. I'm attacked every time I do my job. When I leave my house to go to work, I am violently assaulted. I've had guns pulled on me. I've been bear sprayed. I've been beaten down. I've been almost killed. So my question for all of you is, how would you feel if every time you showed up to work, masked militants tried to kill you? Because that's how we feel. That's our lived reality. And you guys go and tell us that we're liars, the riots aren't that bad, right? I've never seen any of you guys on the ground. In fact, I've never seen anybody representing the companies you work for on the ground. You guys come to us for interviews that never get published. Stop saying we're lying. We're not. We risk our lives every day to do the job that you guys are too afraid to do.
What network would you say is the worst, if I could ask?
Oh, man, yes,
I mean, honestly, it's a simple question.
Well, there's a lot of people in this pool, and I would say I'm not talking about Fox. I'm not talking about Newsmax or any outlet that resembles them, so I'll let you guys put the pieces together on who I'm exactly talking about.
Say, which network?
MSNBC, for sure.
They're terrible.
Oh, I'm not talking about Fox, right? No, of course. I don't even... I have no idea where Fox, CNN, and MSNBC are at. Like, I don't care at all. For all I know, they're running a hit piece on me. I wouldn't even care at this point.
terrible. I agree. That's
CNN close, yeah.
Yeah, I'd rate it that way. Yeah. MS, NBC, that's Brian Roberts.
Yeah.
That he allows that to happen is a disgrace.
Absolutely.
And CNN is second.
Yeah,
I would say CNN is not quite as bad as MS.
MSNBC is not
What
really a
about
news
others?
site anymore.
Oh, MSNBC is sick.
Yeah.
They're sick.
Well, sir, it's
who
also
else?
just the stories that they publish about what's the ICE enforcement operations that are so heavily slanted that it's no longer, as I was saying, no longer just Antifa, but Americans that are becoming radicalized. So they've been very irresponsible with how they've been reporting.
Who's that?
MSNBC, for example.
Would you rate them the worst?
Probably.
Who would you rate second?
Well, they ran a story about an operation in Southern California about how a father of 3 Marines was arrested, and they made it seem like they just did it because he's brown. But there's video of that same man charging at the agents with a weed whacker. Now, I've worked with weed whackers back in the day, and you don't want to be on the receiving end of one of those. So that's why he was arrested, but the story was presented as if it's a brown guy just simply being arrested. And I've been around ICE agents, and I'm a citizen, so I feel fine. But it's just that's why. It's not just Antifa. It's not happening in a vacuum. It's
working in conjunction. I think they work in conjunction with some of the media. I think ABC is very bad. I think NBC is very bad. And CBS has a new owner, so we have hope for CBS. CBS has a great new owner, in my opinion. But I will tell you, ABC is terrible. NBC is terrible. NBC's MSNBC too. They changed it. They moved it over legally so they couldn't be tainted by the words MSNBC, but they are absolutely terrible. There are a lot of them. What about independents? Independent networks.
They're a little bit better, but I would say that we're an example of how you don't need to be part of a super large company to be able to do just basic journalism. All you got to do is sit and record, and you'll let the story play out. And that's why they hate us. That's why
I watched a level of dishonesty that's incredible, where answers are changed. Like just before the election, an answer was changed by Kamala. She gave a horrible, death-defying, election-defying answer, and they took the answer out and they replaced it with another answer that she gave 5 minutes later, having to do with a different subject, but at least it wasn't election-defying. No, the level of dishonesty with the media is incredible, whether it's on Antifa or many of the other groups. You're talking about Antifa, and I know that's close to your heart because that's the one that's most affecting you, but there are others that are as bad or almost as bad as Antifa, having to do with different people, different sections of the world, but it's terrible. We're not going to let it go on in this country. We cannot.
I've had weed whacker injuries. They will, I've been smacked in the shin and the ankle, and it is, yeah, it's like, look, man, it's a weapon. It's a weapon. I'm sorry. It just is. Look, yeah, I'm sure they laughed about pitchforks in the Dark Ages.
Not going to let it go on. And a big problem is not all of them, but some of the networks out there. And you do wonder why. You really do. Okay, please. Go ahead, yeah.
Mr. My name is Jonathan Cho. I'm an investigative reporter for Frontlines Turning Point USA. I'm also a senior fellow at Discovery Institute in Seattle. And I cover far-left extremism as well as the homeless drug crisis in America. And I find it oftentimes those worlds intersect. And hot off the presses, what I wanted to bring to your attention today is a report from a Capital Research Center here in D.C. in conjunction with Discovery Institute. They just put out this study right now. And what it shows is that Antifa is heavily embedded in the homeless and housing nonprofit sector. In many cases, the homeless industrial complex is running cover for Antifa. Antifa is benefiting from American tax dollars, and they're essentially being used as the muscle. Let me give you an example. There's a group called Stop the Sweeps in many U.S. cities right now. They get in front of encampment sweeps. What they're doing quietly is they're bringing in Antifa militants to manufacture a crisis to make the police look bad. Another group right now that is behind Antifa and working with Antifa very closely, based on the research that we have right now that we're going to give to you and your team, are the Democratic Socialists of America, also known as DSA. Again, these far-left progressive groups tend to be aligning themselves with Antifa. So finally, in closing, what I wanted to thank you again, Mr. President, is that a few months ago, earlier this year, you put out an executive order on homelessness and the drug addiction crisis in America, and that's sent the entire homeless industrial complex on the run. You have absolutely moved the needle and changed the game. But what's also come out, again, is that there is a connection, a deeply embedded connection with the homeless housing nonprofit game in America, connected to Antifa and the far-left activists. And finally, I just wanted to say that all of our resources at Turning Point USA and Discovery Institute are at your disposal, and we will continue again to carry on the legacy of Charlie Kirk. He would have wanted us to pursue and chase the story.
Well, he was a good friend of mine, as you know, and he helped us get elected. Us, it really is us. It's even some of them, but not too many of them, not enough of them. And did you notice when we mentioned CNN and MSDNC, the cameras went off. Two of the cameras immediately went off, but they're not going to cover it anyway. The problem we have is that this is a very important meeting, but you'll see very little press about it. These are major statements being made by major people, including the people right here, and you're not going to see too much about it. They don't like to cover this kind of thing. So it's very dishonest what's going on there. I think the press is a big factor. Please, go ahead. Thank you, James.
I am absolutely obsessed with what's inside this box. It is literally my favorite thing to eat now. And
Mr. President, thank you so much for having us all here to bring attention to this matter. You did mention MSNBC, CNN, a handful of those other outlets that have been lying about, various things, but especially what ICE, the brave men and women over at ICE have been doing. I was talking to Antifa members in Portland the other day, and, a lot of these people genuinely believe, they buy these lies, and they genuinely believe that they're fighting against literal Nazis and not brave men and women that are putting their lives on the line to basically, enforce basic immigration law, right? That everyone seemed to agree with up until maybe a few years ago, a handful of years ago. So, once again, thank you so much.
Yeah, just remember, although there's kind of a similar beat, unfortunately, in the way that it is implemented, the Nazis browbeated through their fascism to change the laws to exactly what the party wanted after they got everybody in Parliament. And from that point forward, they changed the laws to do the Jewish thing. And there was a special situation for Jews because of the specific circumstances of wanting to populate Palestine with them. This is, as he said, our immigration laws that have existed since forever, and nobody is talking about changing them. We just want to not enforce them, period. Or be selective on a secret whim.
So much for having me. My name is James Klug. While my primary job is traveling around the country, having conversations with Americans about various political topics and issues, I have had a lot of run-ins with Antifa over the last 5 years. And I do think that Antifa is a primary reason why many conservatives are afraid to go out and protest and make their voices heard and maybe bring friends and family to a demonstration and exercise their First Amendment right, because they are literally deathly afraid. I talk to these people all the time. They're afraid of militants showing up in black bloc and hurting them and their families. And, I personally witnessed Antifa assaulting hundreds of police officers. I've witnessed them firebombing police departments and federal property. I've witnessed them making death threats against federal agents, police officers, journalists. I think I've witnessed every single person here, maybe not personally, but I've seen them get, hunted down and attacked. And so, this is a group that is responsible for a good percentage, if not a majority, of the violent riots in 2021 and 2020 when Democrat mayors had a kind of a hands-off approach with these left-wing militants. Just as a quick reminder for everybody, we're talking about dozens of murders that happened in those riots. We're talking about billions of dollars of damage to property and communities all over the country. We're talking about thousands of officer injuries. So this isn't just like some little thing that they're, they punch a journalist here and there. No, they're responsible for a lot of damage and a lot of people that have, unfortunately died and basically suppressing people's voices, And so what I do want to talk about is to get this footage. Almost every single person in the room here, to get this footage, you have to go undercover because you are at risk of being beaten or worse. You have to go undercover. You have to film low-key to capture them committing crimes. This is stuff that the mainstream media was not doing and has not been doing. They'll show when Antifa is maybe it's a little bit more peaceful, and they'll show when it's more mellow, but they'll remove the cameras when things get violent and it's actually dangerous to be here. And I personally witnessed legacy media vans showing up at a riot 300 yards away, getting out of the vehicle, filming for 30 seconds, saying something like, fiery but mostly peaceful, packing up, and to add insult to injury, you have Democrat politicians that are saying, it's just an idea, right? That's all this is. So it's just an idea. After all of this chaos, it's just an idea. Well, that idea has threatened to kill me and many of my friends that are here today. So, Mr. President, thank you so much for bringing this to the forefront, and it's definitely making a big change. Really appreciate you.
All of that, I believe, is true. From what I have witnessed on the internet, the conversations from potentially active or sympathetic guys. And it's all unjustified because it's all ill-informed as to what things are and the history that brought it there. And the difference between that and what your imagination has compared it to. And it's great that you want to espouse a different way of doing things. But you can't just say that the arresting of someone is blindly never justified. We're just not used to it because no one has a reason to arrest us. But also, we are leaving the world where policing was done in a very intrusive way, in a very coercive way, in a very Fourth Amendment violating way, First Amendment manipulating way, Second Amendment threatening way, many other aspects of legal rights, and so many people that were trying to fix their lives, having justice system situations that fucked over something. I don't know. It's hard to explain today because I didn't think the right kind of change would come. And because it doesn't look like the kind of change I thought we needed. But that was my mischaracterization of how people are. I didn't truly foresee liberalism turning out this particular way because I thought people liked certain things and dislike certain things on a completely different base. I didn't realize that my processing, my understanding of my world around me was different from my friend who grew up at the same time and in the same town as me. And when you find out that your view is more naive and limited than you thought that it was, you still have to figure out what you do being a person functioning in the world from this position. How do you change? Because you obviously need to either grow or abandon this position. Right? And so I think at the end of the day, because people are so charged, it's just like, how do you keep friends if your friends are active? Right? It's just like, oh yeah, we're playing a game. You're hanging out, you're playing a game, and everything is, and everybody's making little Trump jokes that, you don't think are funny, not because you like Trump, but because they are wildly off base and meaningless. And very cringe.
One question. So why is it there are numerous groups? I mean, Antifa's terrible, but you have other groups that I guess probably are almost as bad or just as bad. Not one other group was mentioned. I'm sort of surprised at that. You just come into contact with Antifa? It seems to be that you mostly come into contact with Antifa, please.
There's a lot of overlap, and I would say that, for instance, Jonathan brought up the Democratic Socialists of America. They're basically the same thing. I mean, there's a lot of Democratic Socialists of America who are out there in black bloc, hiding their faces. And so I think we use, and I do understand, for the record, I do understand the challenge, as Andy pointed out, with Antifa as a graspable entity. I do. But at the end of the day, when you look at behavior, you prosecute behavior, right? We're not prosecuting ideas or ideology, you're prosecuting behavior. So whether you can prove that this amorphous...
Right. If everybody is in agreement with her, then all of this is in accord with what you ask your government to actually do. Because there's a lot of good kids that want to do bad things.
Thing is Antifa, or someone has a patch that says Antifa. It doesn't matter. Did they assault someone? Did they assault a federal agent? Were they engaged in rioting? What is it? And so it's...
Right. She's even standing up for somebody who might have an Antifa patch and say, no, don't arrest them because they got an Antifa patch. I believe that's what I understood. Am I Mandela affecting myself by mishearing it? I want to go. Let me take that back and slow it down. Because this is, whoops, not that one. Because this is important. Normal. Let's go back over here.
Of murders that happened in those riots. We're talking about billions of dollars of damage to you are at risk of the vehicle. That's all.
As bad or just...
I just got my latest Lumi shipment. I think I've bought this like 3 times now. I always get their sweat control.
With Antifa, please.
There's a lot of overlap, and I would say that, for instance, Jonathan brought up the Democratic Socialists of America. They're basically the same thing. I mean, there's a lot of Democratic Socialists of America who are out there in black bloc, you know, hiding their faces. And so I think we use, and I do understand, for the record, I do understand the challenge, as Andy pointed out, with Antifa as a graspable entity. I do. But at the end of the day, when you look at behavior, you prosecute behavior, right? We're not prosecuting ideas or ideology, you're prosecuting behavior. So whether you can prove that this amorphous thing is Antifa or someone has a patch that says Antifa, it doesn't matter. You know, did they assault someone? Did they assault a federal agent? Were they engaged in rioting? What is it? And so they're always using that, oh, well, they don't call themselves Antifa, even though some of them literally do. It's called Rose City Antifa. How long has it been around in Portland, Andy?
Since 2007.
They call themselves Antifa. In Seattle, I was outside the federal building, and they were yelling.
Whoops. Sorry. Oh, am I still? I hit a button. Search with your voice. Oh, okay. That's just this. Oh, okay. All right. Anyway, yeah, let me put the speed back up to 1.5. That is what I thought that I heard, right? So that has to be honored. This is right. You know, this is like this is the kind of shit that I liked. That like this was my favorite shit that 45 administration did was these roundtables. They typically hit the heart of the civics of the matter in real fucking time. I don't care if this is staged or not. You know, because how the fuck do you escape the staging of anything? I'm glad that it is staged. Its point is to get the message across. Does it get the message across in the manner that it is staged? Does it seem like an authentic staging? Is the script authentic? There's a script going on for sure. You can tell these guys are speaking from pseudo-memorized lines. They may have an opening statement that they have written, and then they go into more of of open dialogue later, or after their initial couple of passages that are written, and then they have something that they can actually like just riff as per the circumstances of the meeting. So this is good, because if we're not going to be able to escape a world that has officers and agents in them, and we're not going to have a more civil conversation about how we change the way that we do things, then at the very least we have things like this where someone can make some changes within. Because what do you do when you make of these laws and what they ask you to do? Because the law tells the executive branch to do something.
There's no police here. This is Antifa land. And at the same time, Democrats, like our governor, oh, Antifa is an idea. But yeah, I think Antifa can overlap with a lot of other entities and organizations.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
President Trump, I just want to add this real quick, because you were asking which mainstream media outlet is the worst. What I think, it's any of them that decided to call Kilmar Abrego Garcia Maryland Dad. Because when I'm out there on the street talking to these people, they call Maryland Dad is this human, he's actually a human trafficking MS-13 gang member that's illegally in the country. But the amount of people on the street that I spoke with that thought that he was a U.S. citizen that was being deported to Uganda is dangerous. These people genuinely believe, based on what comes out of the garbage standing over here, that you guys are deporting U.S. citizens. So that's what
So when you have a governor like Pritzker in Chicago, where you have Illinois, which is in a lot of trouble, Chicago's there, potentially a great city again. It's not great now, but it could be great again. That's why we have to get there soon, because eventually you can't do that. What makes a man like that say that things are wonderful? Why doesn't he say, we love that President Trump is going to come and help us clean up Chicago and make it safe again, as opposed to fighting us and pretending that there weren't 50 murders and 200 shootings and all of that? Why is that? Go ahead, Nick.
To spite you. To spite you, to spite the administration. That's simply what it's about at this point. Because, if you go and talk to some of these citizens, like I'll use Portland as an example again because I've been there for so long now. You talk to the neighbors that live in the apartments next door to the ICE facility. They're veterans with PTSD that live there, and they're here all night long, screaming, fireworks being lit off by these rioters, children crying because they can't sleep at night and they're scared of all the noise outside, and they can't.
And yet, to spite you, and that's been the political discourse. To spite you is because of conspiracies, but because the public is not intelligent enough for conspiracies, the justice system has to discover them. Because this is their statements. Their statements are out of spite. It is. It's entirely a spite thing, because they want to ride on the sentiments of, well, look, it's very simple. Trump is going to get everybody raped and everybody genocided and everybody enslaved. Trump's going to get everybody this and that. So out of spite, we're going to do things our way and protect all the people from Trump's people within our jurisdiction.
Can't leave. They can't. I mean, they got to leave. You can't just leave. These people aren't wealthy individuals, and that's one of the major problems here. These people are afraid to come out and speak out, and they're getting no help from the government at all. They've been begging for the noise ordinance to be enforced outside of their apartment complex for months now, and the city of Portland has ignored them every single time. The victims are, as I said, they're afraid, but the governments aren't doing anything because they want to spite the administration. It's all political.
And the politicians make you feel like you're foolish, like there's something wrong. How could President Trump be saying that about Chicago? And yet the night before you see that, 11 people were shot, 5 people died, and you have him talking about like it's a wonderful situation. They make you feel guilty. And a lot of people don't get over that. They just don't get over it. I think they convince the people. Do wealthy people leave too or not? Places like Portland, are the wealthy people leaving?
Yeah.
People that can leave.
That's what they do, because News 12 came to my neighborhood because somebody stole a car last week in my neighborhood in the middle of the fucking night. And I agreed to talk to them. And when I said, don't come around here. You're gonna have to, I'm armed and will defend myself. He's like, oh, don't you think you should cower in your bedroom and call the cops? He didn't say it like that, but that's what he's asking me to do, is to be a coward and not take personal responsibility for the situation in front of me, to make sure that no one is harmed, because better I harm than anyone else, because if I get harmed, perhaps I'm the only one that gets harmed, and I take his power away because he wanted the choice to harm someone else or to get away with doing something else, and I thwarted his plans by just intervening, and perhaps I'm dead. But the circumstances may say if I don't do something, it's bad news. And maybe it's worth my life to stop my car from getting stolen, because getting my car back is no guarantee and a big fucking deal. How am I supposed to fucking recover from that? So the press is always on a let the bad guy win trope. And they think they can pull off this verbal jujitsu. So I gave them nothing they could run with. so they didn't run me. But they get the message.
Are they leaving?
I think that they're moving to the areas that have been gentrified. I mean, the Oregon governor, when she was saying, we don't need Trump here, she's walking around. It's a very tight shot, if you notice that. And she said, Portland's just fine. You know, look at me. And they'll focus on the couple areas of Portland that are very nice.
And there were explosions in the background.
Yeah. I mean, there was a reason they cropped it in.
Explosions in the background. Anybody have anything else to say over here?
Get 30 protein sticks for just $36. That's only $1.20 each. Here are 3
And then we'll get you. Will you be taking questions, or is it just a waste of time? Because they're going to ask questions, but, well, there's Brian. He's good. But you know what? In a way, it's a waste of time, because if you give a great answer, they don't put it on. If you give a horrendous answer, or even if you give a great answer, they make it sound like it's not a great answer. They're very dishonest. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, and I think part of that dishonesty comes from what they see. For instance, I've never been asked to go on any other show besides Fox News. My clips go viral everywhere, but they've never even asked, like CNN's never asked, MSNBC's never asked. And a lot of times when I go to hotels, I'll stay and I'll watch like MSNBC.
Fortunately, their ratings are terrible.
They are terrible.
MSNBC is dying, and CNN is dying like a dog.
And
poor CNN, it's so pathetic.
It is very pathetic.
You ever see their anchors in the evening? That nobody ever heard of them. Where do these people come? I could take anybody off the street in Washington, D.C. They do a better job.
Yeah, it's not hard to show what's going on these days. You literally have an iPhone and you can post it on X.
They don't believe in the star system, you know. It's one of those things, right? Okay, Nick, you finished, Nick?
Yeah,
Are you
thank you
finished, Nick? Good job. Thank you very much. Well, you've been through hell, I tell you that, but you're really incredible patriots, incredible people. Go ahead, please, Brian. Brian, go ahead.
I'm so thankful for each and every one of you here right now, and I'm very grateful that my network, Growing American Voice, has partnered up with many of you, Jack Silvic, Showing Network, many of you, Savannah, have appeared on a network as well, so thank you for being here. My question is this: in terms of following the money, I would just notify that the city of Austin is clear to vote tomorrow to basically waive a $120,000 fee so that a no teens, basically an anti-Trump rally can occur in their city. They're bypassing the fees, rolling into the taxpayers. So my question is to you: what can the people of Austin, Texas do right now to make sure that their tax dollars don't fund a no teens, anti-Trump rally coming up?
Well, you just tell me. I would love to do something about that. Bring a lawsuit, do something. You know, the best thing you can do is have honest elections, because the elections are totally rigged in so many of these places. You know, you take a look at the people, they're all loving you. They can't breathe. They love so much, every one of them. You don't see one negative, then all of a sudden you lose the election by 20 points. The elections are so rigged, and we proved that in 2020 more than any other time. But even the last election, there were areas that I won by much more. We won in a landslide, but I actually won in more of a landslide than we thought. I said, you got to get out, make it too big to rig. And fortunately, the people made it too big to rig. They tried. But the biggest thing you can do is have honest elections. You know, if you don't have, and you need great media. You need borders. Wait. You need borders. You need honest media. You need honest elections, and you have a great country. And you need all three of them. Yeah, go ahead.
Lieutenant had ties to all these radical groups that you talked about inside here. So thank you for removing.
I would like you to make a big deal, though. They're waiving a fee, but I guarantee they wouldn't waive it if it was if it were a conservative rally. They wouldn't be waiving it. So maybe you can look into that, Pam. Todd.
Mr. President.
That sounds like one for Todd, Pam. Go ahead, Todd. Good luck.
First time Antifa, actually.
I'm with Al Arabiya. It's an Arabic network based in Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia. But I am before in Pula today. Mr. President, you said that you might go to the Middle East on Sunday. Do you mean Egypt and Israel? And would you consider going to Gaza to see what things are on the ground?
I might do that. We haven't decided exactly. I'll be going to Egypt most likely. That's where everybody is gathered right now, and we appreciate that very much. But I'll be making the rounds, as the expression goes. I probably will.
Mr. President.
Go ahead.
Just to clarify, you said you might go to Gaza. You're saying first off, I'm representing the TV pool, but I'm with NBC, sir.
That's too bad.
Just to clarify, you said you might go to Gaza, and then the second question I had earlier today, you said the mayor of Chicago and the governor of Illinois should be jailed. Have you asked the Justice Department to look at possible charges?
No, I've seen the law, and when you have a group of people where the police call off the safety for ICE officials, I've understood that, and I've read it today in numerous journals, that that's illegal. What they did is I guess it was ICE, Christie, right? They were under threat, and the police were helping beautifully, and it was fine. And then all of a sudden, a woman was on the line saying, "Everybody, move back, get out." And they were given an order by the second person in the police department, and the governor knew about it, the mayor knew about it. I understand that's a criminal offense. Do you want to comment on that, Christie?
Yes, sir, we're seeing that kind of pattern happen with local law enforcement and state law enforcement, not just in Illinois, but also out in Oregon, too. In fact, in Portland, I was there yesterday, but some of the ICE officers were telling me that as they drove by the rioters that were saying, kill ICE agents, Molotov cocktails, melt ICE, that the Portland police were cheering them on and had their fists in the air cheering on the rioters that were threatening their lives. So in Chicago, we had a 10-car caravan trail our ICE officials and pin them down. And those ICE officials, to get out of their vehicles, a woman tried to ram them and run them over, and shots were fired to get them to safety. So it's happening on a regular basis, and any elected official that allows this to happen and gives cover to those kind of individuals who are perpetuating murder should absolutely be prosecuted, in my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. President. And by the way, we have Marco Rubio. Marco, come on up here, please. He's going to bring a little stability to this group. Come on up. Does everybody know Marco Rubio? Is there anybody that doesn't? Some of the reporters don't. That's why they shouldn't be reported.
Which job is he here for today,
Come
sir?
on up here, Marco. Anything we should know about the Middle East?
welcome to talk to you about here, Mr. President.
He's done a good job. He was born for this job. I can tell you. Daniel, please.
Mr. President, thank you very much. I have two questions for you, if that's okay. Seamus talked a little bit about the money aspect of this. Do you believe if you go after where the money is coming from with Antifa, in regards to Antifa, do you believe that would be similar to cutting the head off the snake, so to speak?
It would help. I don't know that it would be totally complete, but it would certainly, you'd knock out 75%, 80%, 85%. These people, a lot of them don't believe it. When they, I watch them, I say, I can almost tell a pro. They're like professionals. That's all they do. And they get paid by somebody. I think it would knock out a lot of it. Yeah, not all of it maybe, but a lot of it.
A lot of the people who we've listened to over the last hour, they've emphasized that Antifa, it's not necessarily this big organized thing. It's a bit ambiguous. It's deorganized. I think that's one of the words that Andy used. What is the challenges of going after a group that makes it intentionally difficult to go after and find? That could be for you, the Attorney General, anyone up there.
Well, they're smart people, and they deceive. A lot of them are crooked people. A lot of them have been staying out of trouble their whole lives, and they've been bad from the day they were born, frankly. But these are sick people. Pam, go ahead, please.
Well, they're smart, but they're not smart enough. Oh, my microphone's broken. They're smart, but they're not smart enough. They have been covered by these liberal cities for so many years. And that's why we're all working with Treasury, with all these different departments, to find the criminal conspiracy.
Okay. I was just given a note by the Secretary of State saying that we're very close to a deal in the Middle East, and they're going to need...
Yeah, that was the moment that it was announced that that's when Trump was just like, oh, can we, this was the deal. This is where we're at now with the Palestine situation, right? Will the administration pivot perhaps as things have been shifting? Will they pivot with the peace? Will the dust settle, and will the administration say, oh my fucking God, what you guys did here was wrong? Yeah. Anyway. Whoops.
Be pretty quickly, so I will take a couple of more questions. Please.
Thank you, sir. I also have two questions for you, if I may. Have you given any more thought to possibly suspending habeas corpus to not only deal with these insurrectionists across the nation, but also to continue rapidly deporting illegal aliens?
Suspending who?
Habeas corpus. So,
I don't know. I'd rather leave that to Christy. What do you think?
No, sir, I haven't been a part of any discussions on that.
Okay, right there, a lot of people were trolling Trump saying that he didn't know what habeas corpus was. He is listening to so many damn things in real time, and he, he had no idea what that question, where that question was coming from yet, with this guy. So, he's hearing so many names of particular immigrants and things like that. He misheard it. He was like, who? Right? And then it was just like, oh, that you could tell. It was like, oh, habeas corpus. And then he gives it to Christie, right? And then Christie's like, no, we're not going to change anything, right? Which is good, because people are concerned about suspension of habeas corpus. And if you think that moment was because he didn't know what habeas corpus is, then you are an idiot. I'm sorry. Because that's not even Trump acting like an idiot for the sake of people who don't understand big words. That's just Trump being human and mishearing something slightly, maybe stumbling over a slight word, like any goddamn fucking person does. So, this is what you deal with when you choose to be in politics and win.
This is CNN speaking, by the way. So,
are you
this is one of the worst reporters that you'll ever. I don't even want to take a question.
How will you decide which workers get back pay and which workers do not?
Well, we're going to see most of them are going to get back pay, and we're going to try and make sure of that. But some of them are being hurt very badly by the Democrats, and they therefore won't qualify. Go ahead, please.
What will the administration do to foreign Antifa organizers and funders who are located overseas?
Go ahead, in the yellow, please.
Troops in our cities, masked federal agents all over the place, political prosecutors.
So the Nobel Peace Prize will be announced on Friday. You've been nominated by many world
many countries, that's right.
Countries as well as the hostage families. Do you think you will win?
I have no idea. I mean, look, I did settle. Marco would tell you we settled 7 wars we're close to settling an eighth, and I think we'll end up settling the Russia situation, which is horrible. 7,000 people died last week, by the way, in Russia, between Russia and Ukraine. I think we'll settle that. So I don't think anybody in history has settled that many, but perhaps they'll find a reason not to give it to me. Perhaps they will.
So anyway, I think I'm going to call it here because it's Q&A territory. I don't. You can look into this and see if you think there's a question worth asking. We've been having at it for like however long I've been live now. And so this was a good little side quest, right? As I'm navigating things, looking at the Saul Alinsky angle, because I think Saul, from what I heard here, Saul probably would have looked at Antifa and considered them fools. He may have agreed with the end that they wanted. I don't think he would agree with the means. Because I think Saul understood that you're not necessarily living in the most immediate of times, but enough hyperbole can put you there. Anyway, that's it for me. Here I am. I stand with no ideological friends. I will catch you guys later.